Hi, my name is Joe Holzbach. I am the board chairman of Country Visions Co-op. Due to COVID-19 pandemic, Country Visions is using a video format for this year's to provide you with the information that would normally be presented at our annual meeting. The board has decided it was in the best interest of everybody to cancel the in-person gathering and present a recorded version instead. First, I would like to introduce the members of our board of directors. Nick Van Giem and Brian Markwart are District 1. Joe Holzbach and Amber Horn-Leiterman are District 2. Mike Paulus, Jack Honke are District 3. Greg Rickert, Bill Weiss are District 4, and Diane O'Hearn is at large. Next, I would like Greg Rickert, Board Secretary, to read the minutes of last year's annual meeting.
The annual meeting of Country Visions Co-op was called to order by Chairman Joe Holzbach at the Millhome Supper Club in Kiel. Joe introduced the other CVC board members. Randall Bondi, Secretary, read the official annual meeting notice. Randy also read the annual meeting minutes from 2019's meeting held January 16th, 2019 at the Farm Discovery Center. The motion was made and second to approve the minutes. Motion carried. Steve Zutz, President and CEO, went over a review of CVC's fiscal 2019 financial statement. CVC's total assets totaled $185,751,000. Total liabilities equaled $68,546,000, with total equity being $117,200,000. Sales totals for the year $197,040,000 versus $197,058,000 in fiscal 2018. Margin for equaled $41,809,000, with the total operating expense $38,523,000, leaving a net income of $8,408,000. Steve reviewed financial results for Coal Energy, which had a fiscal 2019 sales of $8.9 million and a net income of $1,039,000. Finally, Steve reviewed results of CP Feeds, which had a fiscal 2019 sales of $170 million and net income of $4,742,000. Joe Holzbach reviewed a map of our current districts and nominees within each district. Wes Henrik, Nominee Committee Chairman, reviewed the ballot per district and reported on election results. Brian Markwart was re-elected in District 1. Amber Horn-Leiterman was elected in District 2, and Jack Honke was re-elected in District 3. A motion was made and second to destroy the ballots. Recognition and appreciation was given to the Board of Director members Randall Bondi and Dave Schneider for their contribution and service on the board. Joe reviewed equity retirements made during fiscal 2019, which totaled over $1.9 million between estates, members over age 70, and normal retirement. Joe also covered the expected patronage distribution to be made in 2020, which is estimated to be $4.6 million, of which 40% or the $1.86 million would be paid out in cash. Steve began his CEO report by thanking patrons for their continued support of the co-op. Steve also reviewed accomplishments in 2019 and decisions to be made in 2020. Environmental cleanup was completed at Sheboygan Falls and the location was sold. Improvements were made at the Random Lake Grain Facility. Branch C store was remodeled, and in 2020 we remodeled the Sheboygan Falls country store. A video was playing showing the co-op's commitment to local fairs and impacts on families participating. Steve thanked the employee group for their hard work and dedication. No old business was brought forward, and then Steve introduced Dan Hagnow. Dan did a presentation of promoting agriculture via social media. Dan shared a couple videos that he made promoting agriculture. Joe thanked the group for coming, and a motion was made and seconded to adjourn the meeting. Motion carried. Respectfully submitted, Randall Bondi.
Thank you, Greg. Now Steve Zutz, CEO and Chairman of Country Visions, will present the financial report.
Hi, my name is Steve Zutz, President and CEO at Country Visions Co-op. And today I'd like to review the consolidated financial statement for Country Visions Co-op for the year ending August 31st, 2020, and comparing that to the August 31st, 2019. So if anybody would like a copy of the financial in writing, please contact our office and we will attempt to get you one. So let's start with the balance sheet. So the balance sheet for August 31st, 2020, we have assets, obviously, and we'll start taking a look at the current assets. So the total of the current assets for the year 2020 were $50.9 million compared to $60.7 million. The decrease was attributed to lower dollars on net receivables and less dollars of inventory in that fiscal year. Moving on to investments and other assets, our total this year was $50.0 million compared to $53.1 million. A lot of those dollars are involved with the investments of other co-ops, which would be the co-op's investments in CHS, Land O'Lakes, and CoBank, totaling $33.4 compared to $31.2, and investments in other entities such as our investment in CP Feeds, our feed manufacturing entity, and Co-Energy Alliance, our energy partnership with Adel Co-op. The last part of the assets on the balance sheet would be plant, property, and equipment. So net of depreciation, we finished the year with $72.7 million compared to $71.8. So all total on the asset side for 2020, the balance sheet equaled $181.7 million compared to $185.7 million. If we take a look at the pie graph, you can take a look at how our assets divided up. So of the total, 32% of them were assets. For plant and property were 40%. Inventory was 15.4%. Receivables 10.5%. And cash and other at 2.1%. Moving on to the liabilities and patron equities of the balance sheet, we would have current assets. And the total current assets for the year were at $30.6 million compared to $42.8 million last year, down considerably. What made up that big difference would be our much smaller amount in our short-term notes payable. Was last year $18.9 million compared to $6.8 million, down mainly due to decreased in inventories at the cooperative and lower amounts of receivables. Moving on to long-term liability, which is basically our long-term debt and some deferred income taxes, sat at $27.7 million compared to $25.6 million. So our total liabilities this past year were at $58.4 million compared to $68.5. The last part of the balance sheet on the is the patron equity side, and that's the money that you, the members, own in the company. So the total in that category was $123.2 million compared to $117.2 million. Of that, the patronage credits, your money in the business, was at $51.3 million compared to $51.1. The unallocated capital reserve did increase to $60.0 million compared to $57.6 million. So the balance sheet does balance, totaling $181.7 million for 2020 compared to $185.7 million in 2019. Taking a look at the attached slide, you can see the unallocated capital reserve was 34.9% of the total, patron equities at 28.2%, long-term liabilities at 15.2%, and current liabilities at 16.8% and 4.9% in the other category. Moving on to taking a look at the consolidated statement of operations for this past year. So our sales at the co-op were actually down. This year they finished off at $187 million compared to $197 million the prior year. The sales decrease was not attributed to any decreases in volumes. More or less the commodity price was lower in 2020 than it was at 2019. Taking a look at the following slide, you can see how it divides up in our sales by our divisions at the co-op. So sales only, the agronomy division had the most sales at 40% of the total. The petroleum division was at 22.7. The convenience stores are at 10.4%. Grain was at 18.4. Propane at 5.6. And country stores and garage were the remainder of the total. So after our sales, we had cost of sales, which leaves us a gross margin to work with to pay the bills. So in 2020, the gross margin finished at $43.8 million, or 23.35%, which is up from the prior year of $41.8 million, or 21.22%. So from those gross margin dollars, we obviously have expenses before we get to our bottom line. So on the expense category, our operating expenses were first under the distribution category, would be $25.6 million compared to $24.6. We had general expenses of $12.1 million compared to $12 in prior year. We had administrative expenses of $1.3 million compared to $1.5 in the prior year, which leaves our total operating expenses at $39.1 million compared to $38.5. So after some small gains on sales of fixed assets, we had a net operating income for the year 2020 of $4.7 million compared to $3.4 in the prior year. We have some other income and expenses that we need to deal with. Turned out an expense in the year 2020 of $2.2 million compared to an expense of $2.8 last year, which leaves our net local savings of $2.47 million this year compared to $552,000 last year. On top of the local net savings, we had patronage income, which we received from local cooperatives, basically would come from CHS Inc. on the petroleum purchases, Land O'Lakes, which would be a lot of our agronomy and seed purchases, and CoBank, where we borrow our money. So patronage last year was $5.4 million, up from $4.4 the prior year. Another area of income would be our gain in equity of our investees, which would come basically from CP Feeds, our feed manufacturing arm, and Coenergy Alliance, our 50-50 energy joint venture with Adel Co-op, finished at $3.6 million this year compared to $3.4 last year. So the total net savings before income taxes for 2020 ended up at $11.5 million compared to $8.4 million. And after provisions for income taxes, the net savings was $10.8 million this year, or 5.78% of sales, compared to $8.4 million last year, which was 4.27% of sales. Taking a look at the slides, we take a look at a few financial ratios that are important to us. First one is the current ratios, which indicates how able your company is to pay our bills on a daily basis. And we had a good percentage ratio of 1.66 to 1 in 2020, increased from 1.42 the prior year. If we take a look at working capital to sales, finished up at 10.79% compared to 9% in 2019. Ownership ratio, the amount of ownership that your company has in the business compared to financing, would be 67.84% compared to 63%. Salaries and wages to gross margin, an important indicator of profitability at your company, was at 36.78 compared to 37.2. And our return on total assets at just under 6% compared to 4.5% the prior year. And our return on patron equities at 8.8% compared to 6.7%. So all in all, a pretty strong year for your cooperative. The next slide, we're just talking about some of our partners. Coenergy Alliance, again, is the energy company that is a 50-50 owned by Country Visions Co-op and Adel Co-op. Had sales of $7.3 million last year with a net income of $844,000. CP Feeds is our feed manufacturing arm with feed mills in Valders and in Wrightstown. Had sales of $198 million this past year, net income of $5.3 million, and you can see the co-op owns 60.8% of that entity. Again, I want to thank you for your attention on the financial report. If you have any questions at all, please give us a call at the office and we will get them answered for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Director elections have been done by mail ballot for several years already, so we didn't need to make any changes to conduct for this year. As you see on the map, there are 4 districts. There are 2 directors in each district, 1 at large. A director election for a 3-year term, and you can see here when that period will be up for each of the current directors. This year's nominating committee was Dave Schneider and Randall Bondi. They did a nice job identifying a great slate of candidates for this year to approve by the board. At this time, Randall Bondi will nominate, from the nominating committee, will present the names into our nomination and announce the election results.
Thanks, Joe. Announcing the candidates for District 1, Ray Dietrich and Jeremy Zerbel. District 2, Joe Holzbach and Randy Hutter. In District 4, Scott Miller and Greg Rickert. The winners in the district, Jeremy Zerbel in District 1, Joe Holzbach, District 2, and Greg Rickert, District 4.
Congratulations to the winners of the elections, and thank you for those who have served on the board. Nick Van Diem did not seek re-election to the board, so Mike Paulus and I presented him with a plaque to recognize his service to the cooperative. Nick, congratulations for 25 years of service with Country Visions Co-op.
Thank you.
Working toward our goal regarding equity payout, this past year, the co-op retired the following equities to the members. Estates, $189,000. Over the age of 70, $596,000. Equity retired 2006 in Kettle Lakes Co-op, $1,431,000 for a total of $2,217,000. The patronage from 2019-2020 fiscal year will be sent out this coming spring. The cash patronage of agriculture as fuel, LP, and agronomy of $1,377,000. CP Feeds is $876,000 for a total of $2,254,000. The total patronage is $5,635,000. Now Steve is back to give an update on operations.
Hello, members. I want to start by saying thank you for your business. We understand that without you, we have no cooperative and we have no business. Our goal every day coming to work is to provide you with the quality products and services you've come to enjoy to make you successful on your farm or on your daily life. So thank you. As you can expect, one of the biggest things that affected your co-op last year also affected everybody in pretty much the whole world. It was the COVID-19 pandemic. It affected your business since almost the start of last year, starting in March, and it affected us and the way we do business probably for the next many years to come. So as we started the pandemic, businesses were really unsure how that was going to unfold and how we would actually do business. There was many questions like, could we actually be open for business? Would customers be willing to come and shop at our locations? Would we have healthy employees to even conduct business moving forward? Farmers were also faced with many unknowns into 2020. Could their products or services be even marketed? We remember we were dumping milk during the pandemic. What would prices be to the farmers? Would suppliers even be available to supply the products that needed to be input into the farms? All these unknowns made it very uneasy in the 2020 season. But as always, farmers and people working in agriculture found a way to get the job done. A little bit more on the positive side, at the end of the year, as we worked through the pandemic, our prices on commodities did start to rally at the end of the year. So being in agriculture, everybody is always anxious for the new year, and at least we're off to a good start with pricing on our commodities. Looking back at 2020, something a little more positive was actually the weather. We had one of the years where we had a timely dry planting season and a timely dry harvest season. I think that's the first year in a long time where we had good field conditions in both the spring and the fall. Throughout our trade territory, crop yields, for the most part, were average or slightly above, although there were a few locations that did get dry and had some challenges. But like we said, the commodity prices are improving, so we're kind of bullish moving into the next year. With all the unknowns this past year, your co-op decided to continue with the planned asset additions and construction projects. We already had investments made, so it could have been costly to cancel some of these plans. In Sheboygan Falls, our country store was scheduled for a complete remodel. The building was structurally sound but needed updating. The board feels this location has lots of potential, and they feel it's important to keep our presence in that community. You can see on the slide, our bright red barn facility has beautiful curb appeal, and we expect to see growth in that location moving forward. The board had been discussing over the last years how and when to replace some of the older facilities at our various locations at the co-op. As you can see, the corporate office location in Reedsville, the Reedsville Country Store, the Whitelaw Warehouse, and the Energy Office all are aging locations and probably will not meet the needs of our future cooperative. The former Shopko Building in Brillion became available at a very attractive price. The board decided to remodel the facility, which could satisfy all 4 of the older buildings into one location, so we made the purchase. Moving several operations to one site will bring some operational synergies, and there will be no need to make an investment of new buildings on a green site. Although it's always a difficult decision to leave one community for another, we did feel the close proximity made it worth the while. The project was divided into 3 phases. The first phase moving forward was the Reedsville Country Store site, which was completed in November. We added pet grooming and pet wash to the store to enhance our focus on lifestyle feeds to our customers. You can see in the picture here, we have one happy customer getting his trim for the day, and you can see the wide variety of lifestyle feeds we have available for sale in the store. And on the bottom side is the entrance to the retail site. The corporate office renovation is underway. It should be completed by the end of February. We anticipate construction being completed at the end of February, and we'll move the staff to the site in early March. Phase 3 consists of a new shop being built on the west side of the location. This will allow us to more readily work on our energy equipment. The shop should be completed in early summer, and at that time the energy division will move over to Brillion to join the office staff. A special thank you goes out to our entire employee group for their efforts this past year. The pandemic was extremely stressful on our staff as well as everybody else in our country. We have a lot of frontline workers that have potential exposures on a daily issue, and all kinds of essential workers that without them, our farmers would be very difficult to get supplied throughout the spring. I was pleased that we did make it through the spring planting season as everybody stayed healthy. We've had several key long-term employees retire this past year. I want to congratulate all retiring employees from Country Visions, but give special recognition to those who are over 40 years of service to the cooperative. On the slide, Mark Menting retired with over 42 years of service as our grain divisions manager. John Ayland, store manager up at De Pere, had over 47 years of service to the co-op. Dennis Halbuck, vice president of agriculture, had over 47 years of service. And Darv Kaiser worked in propane operations for over 48 years. You've all left your mark on the co-op system. Thank you for your service. You'll be remembered for your contributions, and best of luck on your futures. Country Visions continues to support local charities in working with the communities that we represent. We feel being part of this is being your local supplier. In addition to supporting animal sales, county fairs, fire departments, fundraisers, Country Visions and our partners CP Feeds teamed up with our suppliers to make a donation of $50,000 in dairy products to families through Feeding America of Eastern Wisconsin. We felt there was a need, and we wanted to directly support our dairy farmers with the donation of their products. I look forward to life getting back to somewhat more normal in the year 2021, and our goal is to get back to in-person annual meetings next year for January of 22 as we celebrate agriculture and your local co-op. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve, for that report. This past year, the Board of Directors made a few changes to the bylaws that will allow for the use of technology to enhance member participation in the governance process. Things like virtual meetings, electronic ballots, and video presentations will be permissible alternatives. The goal is to get back to an in-person meeting to share information and ideas next January. But we want to make changes in case we ever need to utilize virtual meetings in the future. If you would like a specific language of the change, please contact the cooperative office for a copy. Thank you for taking time to watch this informational meeting, and thank you for your continued support.
Country Visions Cooperative.